Greetings, each of you. Today's episode on Let's Talk, Taking Action to Learn Knowledge, we're going to learn more about the student teaching process and everything that's involved in student teaching. So, of course, joining me today is Visitor Tara Pender, who is our amazing administrative assistant in the Department of Teaching and Learning. Will you bring greetings to us, please?
Good morning, everyone.
Today, also joining us will be Dr. Shelly Bazemore, who's also going to explain more about the student teaching process. Mrs. Pender, I'm going to ask you to ask her the questions today. So we'll start off with you.
Thank you. Okay, hello, Dr. Bazemore.
Hello, how are you this morning?
Good, how are you?
Doing great, thanks.
So first off, can you give us a little bit of background about yourself?
Sure. I am a K-12 educator by trade. I was everything from a teacher aide all the way up to an assistant superintendent. And then after 30 years, I decided to go with my dream job and work with student teachers and came to Virginia State. So I've now been at Virginia State for 5 years as the coordinator of field and clinical experiences. And I work with the dean and with the Department of Teaching and Learning.
That's excellent. Okay, first question. What is student teaching?
Student teaching. Well, let me begin by first going through the progress of how you actually get to student teaching. We have a conceptual framework within the College of Education at Virginia State University where students have to leave competent, caring, culturally responsive, reflective practitioners. And you can see by the diagram on the screen that there are 4 levels to our conceptual ladder for success, where our students can actually gain experience through the 4 years to prepare for that 4th year of student teaching.
Gotcha.
So let's start with level 1. Now, these are just a few samples of courses that go along with each of the different levels. But the first level is exploratory orientation. Students will observe and do some small group tutoring in a classroom. They aid and assist either the teacher or students as requested. They work with children and teachers in either one-on-one or two-in-one or small group instruction. And then, as I said, some sample courses were down at the bottom of that page. Students take 15 hours of field experience per professional education course. So level 2 is the introductory experience, where students build on their previous skills from level 1. They practice and apply the types of skills that they're learning in their methods courses. They will do some small and whole group instruction during their field experience. They plan and then they implement their planning and actually do some micro teaching. At level 3, it's called increased progression in field experience. So again, students build on their previous skills through application and reflection, and they actually reflect on their role in the classroom, and they take their observations, they reflect on them so that they can improve on their learning. And all of this then leads to level 4, the culmination and full clinical ownership, where student teachers actually go into the field and they become the teacher. They're in the field for about 14 weeks. And typically they have 2 different placements, but it just depends on the circumstance for that particular student, because some will actually substitute teach and get paid while they're out there doing their student teaching. But in their role as student teacher, they are learning to be lifelong learners, but they're also in the teaching role. So they are being they're teachers and they're learners at the same time. And the ultimate goal is for them to graduate at the end of that semester and go on into their own classroom.
What are the teacher candidates' expectations?
Well, we have to start with a student's attendance. They are expected to be at their student teaching placement every single day, unless there's some type of emergency. If they are sick enough that they cannot attend, then they need to go to the doctor and bring a doctor's note. Otherwise, they are expected to be there. If there's a death in their family or whatever, then there has to be some form of documentation letting us know that they are legitimate in their absence. So with that attendance, they are required to do a minimum of 300 hours a semester in student teaching. So the only time that we allow them to miss student teaching is if we have a career fair at BSU and they participate in that to practice their interview skills, which are, again, part of the whole process of student teaching. Then professional dispositions. We need to know when our students are going out into the field that they are being respectful to students, staff, administration, parents, everyone that is within the school community as stakeholders. So our students are monitored throughout their experience at BSU to make sure that they know how to present professional dispositions and they act in that way regardless of the circumstances. They also know the professional standards of attire, and they are expected to adhere to that every day. In some schools, teachers are allowed to wear jeans every day. Well, our students don't do that. They're held to a higher standard. Our students can have Jean Friday if that is something that the school does 1 day a week, but otherwise they are expected to be in not necessarily semi-formal attire, but at least business casual each day. A kindergarten teacher wouldn't be expected to wear heels and a dress. However, that may be what a woman would wear at the high school, or at least nice slacks and nice shoes. So it really does depend on the situation, but they do know the professional standards of attire and they are expected to adhere to it. They're all familiar with confidentiality and the fact that they cannot post students' faces and comments on social media unless it has been approved by the school and the family. And even down to the confidential paperwork, especially with our special ed teachers, they deal with a lot of confidential paperwork, and the students know that they have to stay within the confines of keeping all information confidential on the students. Our students write lesson plans. They provide instruction based on those lesson plans. They have learned classroom management. They know how to assess and evaluate students. But the ultimate goal of student teaching is for them to practice all of those things so that they are going to be comfortable once they get into their own classroom.
How do I qualify?
Well, first of all, you're going to start with an application, but you do have to meet certain criteria before you can even get into student teaching. So let's begin with the admission process, the application. Within the application, we gather information, general information, an autobiographical sketch, and advisor recommendation and evaluation, and then also a faculty member recommendation form. You must have a minimum of a 2.5 cumulative GPA, and you have to have at least a C or better in our professional education courses. Within the application, the student teaching internship form, ST1, has to be completed in its entirety, and if it's not complete, it cannot be processed. So it's all of these forms, it's important to make sure that they are complete. For the student teaching internship supplement, which is the 1S form, it is used to provide information that would be helpful to our College of Education to determine the student teacher internship site. In other words, we need to know the content area, the grade levels that are needed, et cetera, so that we can go out into our partnering schools and request individuals that are going to be the best master teachers our students could possibly have. We want to give them the best experiences so that they can grow and be ready for their own classroom. Now, students also have to have a tuberculosis screening. It is a requirement from the state of Virginia. And that can be done at Memorial Hall at the Student Health Services, or you can go to a minute clinic at Kroger, CVS, Walgreens, etc., and get it. However, if there are questions about fact you may have been out of the country, may have picked it up in some situation, they may actually have to give you the immunization, and then you have to go back in a week and they check to see what the results are for you. So it could be as simple as going and filling out a questionnaire and you being approved to that you don't have to take the tuberculosis test. On the other hand, you may have to, and you may have to wait a week before you get your final information on that. Students also have to do a background check, and that is done through application researchers. We have a company that does it for Virginia State's College of Education, and that has to be completed, and the results need to come back to myself or whomever the coordinator of field experiences is, so that we can make sure that you are in the proper professional status to be able to go into our schools, because our partner schools do require that you meet those qualifications. There is an advisor certification form also, and the advisor is just completing a checklist, making sure that you are indeed eligible by the completion of all the things required of you. Now, there are assessments that are required of all students that go through our program, but it is based on what subject area and grade level that you teach. So, for example, the academic skills assessment is one that all people have to take that are going into education, and that is the Virginia Communication and Literacy Assessment. That particular assessment is very difficult because many of the skills come from courses that were taught in high school, and by the time our students take this test, it's usually they've already been into college for a couple of years. However, once they get past that, then they have one or more tests left still to take. They'll have to take the Praxis 2 subject assessment for their particular content area. The only subject that comes to mind right away that doesn't have a Praxis 2 assessment that is required is special education. There is a reading assessment that elementary and special education teachers do have to take. However, it's called the Reading for Virginia Educators, or the RVE. And again, that is absolutely required for elementary and special ed endorsements. If you are an elementary education major, I would like to use that as an example. You'll take the VCLA, and then for the Praxis 2, there's actually 4 parts to that assessment: math, reading, social studies, and science. And then you still have to take the reading for Virginia educators, and you must pass all of those before you can go into student teaching. Copies of assessment scores are sent to the coordinator of field clinical experiences, showing that you have indeed passed those courses, and we keep them on file for when you are applying for licensure. Now, student teacher placements are made by the coordinator of field and clinical placements, and they are based on, again, the application, what a student needs in terms of grade level, content area, and so forth. It is a collaboration between the school divisions. Sometimes it's the HR office, sometimes it's principals, and we make sure that we make a good match with both our students and our master teachers. Cooperating teacher qualifications are based on mentor guidelines from the Virginia Department of Education, and it's a minimum of 3 years of experience as a licensed professional teacher, but it also is based on recommendations from the principal. It needs to be a master teacher who is thought well of by colleagues and the administration. It is someone who goes above and beyond the course of duty. They are willing to do whatever it takes to help grow their school and to make it the best place that It can be. And so again, they're modeling all these appropriate professional behaviors for our student teachers. Lastly, liability insurance is required for you to do student teaching. And it can come in the form of joining a professional organization such as the Student Virginia Education Association or the Council for Exceptional Children, or even another professional organization that may be in the math, science, social studies, or English area. But it does have to be a professional organization that would cover you in a classroom with insurance. And if you don't join an organization, or you don't have an organization that actually provides that type of liability insurance, then you would have to show receipt of the additional insurance, either through your parents' insurance, or if you're on your own, you'd have to show some type of insurance saying that you are covered before you ever can step foot into the schools.
All right, I just have one more question. Any advice for our student teachers?
My best recommendation is to start by communicating with your cooperating teacher before you ever even step inside the school. Communicate with them either by phone or by email. Let them know how excited you are to be a part of their classroom and that you're looking forward to it. And then to schedule the date and time for your actual first meeting. At that meeting and every other day after that, you need to be professionally following their lead and just as a sponge, taking in everything you possibly can get from them as they are teaching you the ropes in the classroom. Keep the relationship professional, but be kind, be caring, competent, and culturally responsive while you're out there, not just to your teacher, but also to your students. But you need to make sure that you keep that positive relationship with your cooperating teacher, because they are going to help write the recommendations that you want to get a job in the future. They're going to be a role model for you for years to come.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you. Thank you to both of you for being here today. We hope that you enjoyed this episode and learned a little bit more about what it means to go into student teaching and to be a part of student teaching. Please have a wonderful day.